My life was originally a straight line, drawn with a fine-tipped pencil on neatly ruled paper, orderly, disciplined, and somewhat tedious. Mornings, I'd clock in at 8 a.m., afternoons, I'd leave at 5 p.m., evenings, I'd return to my four walls and a stack of cheesy romance dramas. I worked in the planning department of Lucius Corporation, a position neither high nor low, just enough to support myself and send some money back to my parents in the countryside. Everything just drifted along, until the day Lucius appeared. He was the company's new CEO, a princeling fresh from overseas studies, appointed to the highest position. Rumors about him flew through the company hallways faster than the elevators. People said he was as handsome as a sculpted god, as cold as Antarctic ice, and so brilliant that even the old guard on the board of directors were wary of him. The first time I met Lucius was during a company-wide meeting. He stood on the podium, impeccably dressed in a perfectly tailored gray suit, his gaze as sharp as a knife, sweeping over every face in the auditorium. When that gaze briefly landed on me for a fraction of a second, I felt a high-voltage current run down my spine. He didn't speak much, only outlined a few strategic directions, but every single word was incisive, logical, and full of weight. From that moment on, my hell on earth officially began. Lucius was a workaholic perfectionist to the extreme. The plan I submitted, even after being reviewed and approved multiple times by my department head, was returned by him, covered in red ink notes. Lack of logical rigor, unconvincing data, needs more strategic vision. I had to stay up for 3 consecutive nights to redo it, to the point where my eyes were as dark as a panda's. My colleagues looked at me with a mix of pity and concern, whispering that I'd landed on the CEO's blacklist. I'd mentally prepared myself for a termination email or a transfer to some godforsaken place. So, when Lucius's secretary called to inform me that the CEO wanted to see me privately after work, my heart sank to my heels. I spent the entire afternoon imagining myself being lectured, reprimanded, or even fired without mercy. At 5:00 p.m., I tremblingly knocked on the CEO's door. The vast room was decorated in a minimalist style with black and white as dominant colors, further accentuating its owner's cold and distant demeanor. Lucius stood with his back to the door, looking out at the city lights twinkling through the colossal glass wall. His silhouette was as straight and stable as a mountain. "Mr. Lucius, you called for me," I mumbled. He turned around. Under the warm yellow light, the sharp features of his face seemed to soften slightly, but his eyes remained deep and unfathomable. He said nothing, only gestured for me to sit on the black leather sofa. The silence was suffocating. I could hear my own heart thumping wildly in my chest. "Miss Sophie," he finally spoke, his voice deep and warm, yet devoid of any emotion. "This plan of yours, you did very well this time." I looked up in astonishment. This was Lucius, the man who had mercilessly crushed my previous plans. Was he praising me? There must be some conspiracy. He seemed to read the doubt in my eyes. A flicker of a smile crossed his lips, so quick that I thought I'd imagined it. He walked to his desk, took out a folder, and placed it on the table in front of me. "This is a contract, take a look." I tremblingly opened it. The first line that caught my eye almost made me fall out of my chair. "Love Tutor contract." I rubbed my eyes several times, making sure I wasn't seeing things. I continued to read. Party A, Lucius Tan. Party B, Sophie Tran. Content: Party B shall act as a tutor, consultant, and guide for Party A in pursuing a female subject. Contract duration: 3 months. Remuneration: a colossal sum with 8 zeros, enough for me to buy an apartment on the outskirts of the city. My head spun. What the hell was happening? The cold, arrogant CEO, the dream man of countless women, needed to hire a lowly employee like me as a love tutor. Was this some malicious joke? "Mr. Lucius, I don't understand," I stammered. "This is too absurd." "There's nothing absurd about it," he replied, his tone as casual as if discussing a business deal. "I'm interested in a woman, but I lack experience in this area. I need a guide. I've observed you, Miss Sophie. You're intelligent, quick-witted, and most importantly, discreet. You are the most suitable candidate." "But why me?" I countered, screaming internally. "I don't have any experience either. My experience only comes from those melodramatic novels and Korean dramas." "I don't need your practical experience. I need your theoretical mindset. he said, his eyes looking straight at me as if capable of piercing through my every thought. You analyze problems very logically, you just need to apply that ability to a different field. Furthermore, he paused briefly, I know you need money. That last sentence hit my Achilles heel. My father had just been hospitalized with a heart condition. The surgery costs were an astronomical sum that my family couldn't afford even if we worked our entire lives. The remuneration in this contract was my only lifeline at this moment. An internal struggle raged within me. On one side was my self-respect and skepticism about the authenticity of this bizarre job. On the other side were a gigantic debt and my father's health. Lucius seemed very patient. He just sat there in silence, waiting for my decision. The confidence radiating from him made others feel pressured. Finally, I took a deep breath, as if making the most important decision of my life. All right, I agree, but I have one condition. Go on. You must absolutely keep the identity of that woman a secret. I don't want to know who she is, I said, a vague sense of discomfort rising in my heart. I didn't understand why I made this request. Perhaps I just wanted to view this as purely a job with no emotional attachment. Lucius looked at me for a long time, his gaze a little complex. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. Welcome then, Tutor Sophie. Your first lesson will begin tomorrow evening. I held the contract in my hand and walked out of the CEO's office, my feet still feeling as if they were floating on air. I had sold myself to the most peculiar job in the world, becoming a love tutor for my own boss. A new chapter in my life had opened, a chapter filled with unforeseen drama and storms. Little did I know that the target he wanted to pursue was me, but that was a story for much later. For now, I was just a reluctant tutor, about to step into a game of chess whose rules I didn't fully understand. Exactly at 7:00 p.m. the next evening, I once again stood before the heavy mahogany door of the CEO's office. Unlike yesterday's trembling fear, my mood today was a jumbled mess of tension, curiosity, and an inexplicable excitement. I was about to embark on my first lesson as the CEO's love tutor. Just thinking about it felt as absurd as a dream. Lucius was already waiting. He wasn't wearing his usual business suit but a simple white shirt and black trousers. His sleeves were casually rolled up to his elbows, revealing an expensive Patek Philippe watch. He looked somewhat less distant, but his regal and oppressive aura remained undiminished. He sat on the sofa, a laptop and a notebook in front of him, looking even more serious than he did during board meetings. Miss Sophie, please sit, he gestured, his voice still even and emotionless. Shall we begin? I took a deep breath, trying to embody a professional tutor. Yes, Mr. Lucius. Before we start, I need some basic information. How long have you and the subject known each other? What is the current level of intimacy? Lucius lightly tapped his finger on the table. Known by sight, never spoken. I nearly choked on my saliva. What? Never spoken? So he wanted to start from absolute zero. The difficulty of this mission had just increased by a level. So, what do you know about her? He turned his laptop screen towards me. On the screen was a professionally presented document like a market analysis report. The title was Target Subject Analysis. My eyes widened in astonishment as I skimmed through the content. Hobbies: reading classical literature, listening to symphony. Weekends: enjoys art exhibitions. Habits: drinks one sugar-free Americano every morning. Often eats salad at Restaurant X for lunch. Occasionally strolls in Park Y in the evening. There was even a list of her favorite authors and music. The detail was chilling, making the hair on my arms stand up. Mr. Lucius, did you investigate her? I couldn't hide the horror in my voice. This isn't pursuing, this is more like stalking. Gathering basic information is the first step in any plan, he replied matter-of-factly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Know yourself, know your enemy, and you will win 100 battles. But this is love, not war. I instinctively raised my voice. You can't apply a business mindset to matters of the heart. Romance is about two people exploring and getting to know each other naturally, not by reading a meticulously compiled analysis report like this. It's disrespectful and frankly, terrifying. Lucius raised an eyebrow, an unfathomable glint in his eyes. So, according to Tutor Sophie, what should I do? The way he emphasized, Tutor Sophie, made me feel both mocked and pressured. I tried to regain my composure, drawing on all the knowledge from the romance dramas I'd binged for years. First step, we need a natural approach. For example, create a chance encounter, or more simply, send a message to get acquainted. A message, he looked skeptical. Say what? Just a simple greeting, for example. Hello, I'm Lucius. I had a very good impression of you. May I have the honor of getting to know you? I said, feeling goosebumps from the cheesiness of my own suggestion. Lucius frowned, too direct and cliched. The weather is nice today, isn't it? Meaningless. I saw you on Instagram, your photos are beautiful. Sounds like a stalker. I started to feel helpless. This student was even more difficult to deal with than a complex business plan. He rejected every one of my ideas with his ice-cold logical mind. Finally, after much debate, we agreed on a more feasible plan. Lucius would, accidentally, appear at an art exhibition that the subject was sure to attend this weekend. My task was to create a detailed script for this encounter, from what he should wear to his first words, and how to naturally strike up a conversation about art. The first lesson ended with my exhaustion and Lucius's perpetually expressionless face. I felt like I wasn't teaching him how to love, but rather programming a robot for social interaction. In the days that followed, the real drama began. On Monday morning, the entire company buzzed when Lena White, the heiress of White Realty, personally delivered a love bento to the CEO's office. Lena was the epitome of a perfect woman. Beautiful, talented, with a prestigious family background, she was the dream spouse for every elite family. The media had always speculated about her and Lucius being childhood sweethearts. Watching Lena's graceful figure disappear into the CEO's private elevator, an indescribable bitterness welled up in my heart. Ah, so she was the target Lucius wanted to pursue. Such a perfect woman, standing beside the exceptional Lucius, truly a match made in heaven. What then was the point of my existence? A lowly love tutor? Why did he need me to teach him when the other person so clearly had feelings for him? The feeling of being unwanted, of being a clown in someone else's romance, made me incredibly uncomfortable. That afternoon, as I struggled with a mountain of data, Lucius suddenly walked past my workstation. He stopped right in front of my desk, causing everyone in the office to turn their attention towards us. Miss Sophie, he spoke, what's the name of that coffee you usually drink from the cafe downstairs? I stared blankly, not understanding why he was asking. Oh, it's a hazelnut latte, sir. He nodded once and walked away, leaving me paralyzed by the curious stares of my colleagues. The next day, when I walked into the office, a hot hazelnut latte, exactly the kind I liked, was waiting on my desk. Along with it was a sticky note in his firm, strong handwriting, Practice LT. My heart skipped a beat. Practice. Was he practicing buying coffee for Lena? Why was he using me as a guinea pig? The discomfort from yesterday resurfaced, but this time it was mixed with an inexplicable sweetness. I shook my head vigorously, telling myself I mustn't have any illusions. This was just a job, he was the student, I was the tutor. All his actions were to serve his ultimate goal, to conquer Miss Lena White. I held the coffee cup in my hand, the warmth spreading to my palm, but my heart felt tangled. It seemed I had started to sink deeper into this game than I realized. I was both jealous of the unseen woman and unable to control my heart whenever my student performed these practice exercises that were aimed directly at me. The weekend arrived as quickly as a gust of wind. I had spent the entire week in a state of dichotomy. By day, I was diligent planning employee Sophie, trying to ignore the hazelnut latte that regularly appeared on my desk every morning. By night, I transformed into Tutor Sophie, racking my brain to devise a perfect script for the destined meeting between Lucius and Lena at the Memory Lane art exhibition. I had thoroughly researched the exhibition's artist, analyzed every prominent painting, and even prepared a few profound comments, knowledgeable enough without being overly showy, for Lucius to memorize. I advised him to wear a beige casual suit, which would be both elegant and create a warm, approachable feeling. I instructed him to appear in the section displaying the oil painting, Sunset at Sea, at 3:00 p.m., as, according to the information I had gathered, it was Lena's favorite piece. Inside me was a jumble of conflicting emotions. I was professional to the point of self-loathing. I was dedicating all my energy to pushing the man who made my heart flutter into the arms of another woman. The more I thought about it, the more bitter I felt. Finally, driven by a morbid curiosity, I decided I would go to the exhibition. I rationalized it to myself, saying I needed to supervise my student to see if he was practicing well. But deep down, I knew I just wanted to witness the prince and princess standing together with my own eyes, to completely deaden my heart, to end all foolish illusions. I chose a simple light blue dress, applied light makeup, and blended into the stream of art lovers. The atmosphere in the exhibition hall was silent and dignified. I maintained a safe distance, hiding behind a large pillar from where I could easily observe the sunset at sea painting area. As predicted, Lena was already there. She wore a pristine white silk dress, her long hair gently curled, looking as beautiful as a goddess stepping out of Greek mythology. She stood silently gazing at the painting, her face exuding a noble and ethereal charm. Occasionally, she glanced at her watch, clearly waiting for someone. Looking at her, I couldn't help but feel inferior. Compared to a flawless gem like Lena, I was just a pebble by the roadside. At exactly 3 p.m., Lucius appeared and my heart tightened. He wore the exact beige outfit I had chosen. His hair was neatly trimmed and every step exuded a regal aura. He became the center of attention the moment he walked in. Lena's eyes lit up and a happy smile bloomed on her lips. She was ready to welcome him. I held my breath, waiting for the play I had directed to begin. Lucius would walk over, utter the greeting I had rehearsed for him, and they would have a heartfelt conversation about art. But no, Lucius walked past Lena as if she were air. He didn't even glance at her. His sharp gaze swept across the exhibition hall and stopped precisely where I was standing. He smirked, a meaningful smile, then strode towards me. My whole world stopped spinning. What was this? This wasn't the script. I panicked, wanting to turn and run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. Lucius stopped right in front of me, so close that I could smell his familiar masculine cologne. "This painting is very interesting," he said, his deep voice resounding beside my ear, but his eyes were on the abstract painting hanging next to where I stood. "It reminds me of the ordered chaos of a perfect plan. What do you think, Tutor Sophie?" He was saying the lines I had prepared for him, but not to Lena, to me. I looked up, meeting his deep gaze. In his eyes, I saw none of his usual coldness, but a teasing smile and a frightening intensity. Mr. Lucius, what are you doing?" I stammered, my mind blank. "Are you practicing?" "Practice needs an object," he replied casually. "Aren't you my tutor? On-the-spot supervision and direct feedback will be much more effective." At this moment, I could feel the eyes of everyone around us turning towards us, and most horrifyingly, Lena's disbelieving gaze. The smile on her lips had vanished, replaced by shock and hurt. She was staring at us, or more accurately at me, with a fiery glare. I felt like I was standing on a grand stage, thrust into the lead role of a play I knew nothing about. Who was I? Where was I? Why was everything going so terribly off track? I think you should focus on your main target." I tried to stay calm, lowering my voice, hoping he understood my hint. "Oh, but currently my target is to know your opinion on this painting." Lucius didn't back down. He even took another half step towards me, completely shrinking my safe space. "And afterwards, perhaps we can go for a hazelnut latte. How does that sound?" My heart felt like it would leap out of my chest. He was openly asking me out, right in front of the target he was supposed to be pursuing. Was this just a high-level practice exercise, or was it a declaration? Just as I was confused and didn't know what to do, a clear but ice-cold voice came from behind us. "Lucius, do you know this girl?" Lena had stepped up, standing right next to us. She looked me up and down with a hostile, scrutinizing gaze, then turned to Lucius, trying to force a natural smile. The real storm had just begun, and I was standing right in its eye. The air around us seemed to solidify the moment Lena's question echoed. Though spoken with a charming smile, her question was as sharp as a blade pointed directly at me. I felt myself shrink, wanting nothing more than to dig a hole and crawl into it. What was I in her eyes right now? An ugly duckling trying to elbow her way into the world of swans? Or a brazen third wheel? I instinctively took a step back, trying to escape the spotlight, but Lucius was faster. He subtly shifted, almost completely shielding me, then turned to face Lena. His expression remained strangely calm, not a single ripple. Lena, are you also here for the exhibition? He replied with another question, his tone as natural as if chatting with an old friend, completely ignoring her loaded question. But Lena was not one to give up easily. The smile on her lips stiffened slightly. I came to meet you. I've been waiting for you by the sunset at sea painting for a long time. She emphasized each word, her eyes darting quickly towards me, implying that I was the one who had ruined their moment. Oh, really? What a coincidence, Lucius shrugged. I was more interested in the abstract works. He turned back, his gaze once again fixed on me, and this time he made no effort to conceal it. This is Sophie Tran, my tutor. The two words, my tutor, spoken from Lucius's mouth stunned both me and Lena. I was stunned because he could utter such a blatant lie with a straight face. As for Lena, she was stunned because she simply couldn't believe it. Tutor, she repeated, her voice rising sharply in astonishment. The perfect smile on her lips finally cracked. Lucius, you need a tutor? A tutor for what? Business or some other field? Her scornful gaze swept over my simple dress and flat shoes. The unspoken comparison between her and me was so clear it didn't need to be said aloud. I felt my cheeks burn with shame and anger. I wanted to speak up, to scream that things weren't as she thought, but my throat felt constricted. Just then, Lucius suddenly reached out and took my wrist. His palm was dry and warm, sending a strange surge of strength that miraculously calmed me. Yes, another field, he said, his tone still casual, but an icy glint appeared in his eyes as he looked at Lena. A field I don't think you're very good at. Miss Sophie is an expert, isn't she, Tutor Sophie? He turned to look at me, giving a subtle but provocative wink. My heart pounded erratically. What the hell was he doing? Was he deliberately provoking Lena and using me as a shield? Lena was utterly enraged by Lucius's attitude. She could no longer maintain her ladylike composure. Lucius, what do you mean? You'd rather associate with some lowly, unknown employee than with me. Do you know what our parents have discussed? Adult matters don't concern me, Lucius cut her off rudely. And as for her, he gently squeezed my hand, she's not a lowly employee. She's my guest, and I don't appreciate others disrespecting my guests. Every word from Lucius was like an invisible slap across Lena's face. Her beautiful face flushed then paled, her eyes welling up with indignation and rage. She glared at me with hateful eyes, as if I had stolen everything from her. Fine, Lucius, protect her all you want, we'll see. Lena gritted her teeth, then turned and strode away quickly, her high heels clacking angrily on the marble floor, creating sounds of fury. The curtain fell on the dramatic scene. Everyone around began to whisper. I quickly pulled my hand away from Lucius's. Mr. Lucius, are you crazy? Why did you do that? Do what? He looked at me with an innocent expression. I was just practicing the lesson on dealing with rivals that we discussed yesterday. What do you think? Was my performance convincing? I was too furious for words. Dealing with rivals? Do you realize you've just made me Miss Lena White's rival? The whole company will be buzzing about this. What will become of my life? Isn't that what a tutor should do? He raised an eyebrow. Participate in real-life situations to gain the most authentic lessons. Consider this part of the contract. You're being paid for this, Miss Sophie. His last statement felt like a cold splash of water to my face. Yes, I was just an employee for hire. What right did I have to question my boss? A wave of indignation and helplessness washed over me. I don't want to stay here another second. Today's practice ends here, I said, my voice ice cold. I'll be taking my leave. I turned to go, but Lucius once again held my hand. Wait, the lesson isn't over yet. He pulled me along, despite my struggles. He dragged me out of the noisy exhibition hall and straight to the parking lot. He opened the door of a luxurious Maserati and practically pushed me into the passenger seat. What more do you want? I shouted as he got into the driver's seat and locked the car doors. Lucius didn't answer immediately. He started the car, slowly driving out of the parking lot. The silence in the car was unnerving. It wasn't until the car had merged into the traffic that he finally spoke, his voice no longer teasing but unusually serious. Next lesson, after defeating a rival, you must consolidate your position. He glanced at me. Let's go for coffee. Still a hazelnut latte. I looked at him, completely unable to understand this man. What on earth was going on in his head? Did he really view this as a game, a series of pre-programmed lessons? Or was there another purpose behind all these mad actions, a purpose I couldn't possibly guess? My heart was both terrified and held a flicker of mad hope. The Maserati glided in silence, taking me to a small coffee shop tucked away in a quiet alley. This place was completely different from the noisy, crowded cafes I usually frequented. It had a small garden with vibrant purple bougainvillea. The interior was cozy and private. It seemed Lucius had calculated everything, even choosing a place where we wouldn't be disturbed. He ordered me a hazelnut latte, just as he said, and for himself, his familiar sugar-free Americano. I sat opposite him, feeling like a defendant awaiting a verdict. My initial anger had cooled, leaving only extreme exhaustion and bewilderment. "Mr. Lucius, I want to terminate the contract." I spoke first, my voice hoarse. "I can't continue this job, it's beyond my endurance." Lucius slowly stirred his coffee, not looking up at me. "Reason." "Reason?" I almost laughed at his question. "You still ask why? You've made me the center of a scandal. You've pushed me into a direct confrontation with Miss Lena. Tomorrow, when I go to work, I don't know what I'll have to face. I'm just an ordinary employee. I don't want to get involved in the wars of rich people like you." It was then that Lucius finally looked up, his deep eyes staring straight into mine. "Miss Sophie, do you remember the clause regarding unilateral contract termination? You'll have to compensate 3 times the amount you've received. Can you afford that?" His words were like a knife stabbing straight into my heart. He was using money to threaten me again. He knew it was my only weakness. Tears of humiliation began to well up, but I tried to hold them back. I couldn't show weakness in front of him. "Why did you do this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why me? You could have pursued Miss Lena much more easily. Why concoct this love tutor drama and drag me into it?" He didn't answer my question. Instead, he reached out his hand towards me. I flinched reflexively, but his slender fingers only gently wiped away a speck of milk foam that had accidentally clung to the corner of my lips. The gesture was surprisingly gentle, completely contrary to his cruel words just moments ago. My heart skipped a beat once more. "This is the next lesson," he said, withdrawing his hand. His voice had returned to its usual calm. "Facing a media crisis. Tomorrow, when you go to work, there will be many rumors. People will stare at you, gossip about you. What you need to do isn't to hide or be afraid, but to hold your head high, act as if nothing happened. Your confidence is the sharpest answer to all the rumors." I stared blankly at him. He was teaching me how to face the mess he himself had created. This logic was absurd, yet undeniably Lucius. "My confidence can't stop wagging tongues," I mumbled. "Then ignore them," he said. "In this world, only the strong have the right to speak. If you want others to respect you, first you must prove that you are not easily bullied. Consider this a special training course. After the contract ends, you will not only have money but also a steel-like spirit. Isn't that a great deal?" I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This man had an incredible ability to make the unreasonable surprisingly reasonable. He was hitting and soothing at the same time, pushing me into a fire pit while teaching me how not to get burned. As Lucius predicted, the next day was the worst day of my working life. From the moment I stepped into the company lobby, I felt strange looks. Whispers erupted from every corner I passed. "Look, that's her. She looks so ordinary. How did she charm Mr. Lucius? She must have some formidable tricks." When I entered the office, the atmosphere was even worse. Colleagues who were once friendly now kept their distance from me. The head of department called me into his office for a private chat, hinting that I should know my place and not climb too high only to fall hard. Even some trivial tasks that weren't my responsibility were pushed onto my desk. Clearly, this was retaliation from those currying favor with Lena. I tried to follow Lucius's advice, holding my head high and ignoring everything, but my heart felt like it was on fire. I felt lonely and helpless. In the midst of it all, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Lucius. "Tonight, 7 p.m., Grand H Hotel, a business party, wear the dress I sent you. This is a lesson on social skills and building your image before partners." Attached to the message was the address of a high-end fashion boutique. Before I could even collect myself, a delivery person brought a large box. Inside was a magnificent sapphire blue evening gown and a pair of sparkling, jewel-encrusted high heels. My head spun. What did he want to do now? Appear together at a business party? Wasn't he afraid the rumors would spread even further? Or was that precisely his goal? I wanted to refuse, but I knew it was useless. I was in a game of chess where I had no choice of moves. I could only blindly follow the director's arrangements. That evening, I wore the gorgeous gown, meticulously applied makeup, and tried to transform myself into a different person. When I arrived at the hotel, Lucius was already waiting in the lobby. He wore an elegant black tuxedo, handsome as a god. When he saw me, a spark of surprise and satisfaction flashed in his eyes. "Very good, Tutor Sophie, you learn fast," he said, extending his hand. "Let's go." I hesitated for a second, then placed my hand in his. As we walked together into the magnificent ballroom, all eyes turned towards us. I took a deep breath, held my head high, and smiled confidently, just as he had taught. But then my smile froze. Approaching us from the opposite side, not just Lena with a chilling expression, but also her father, Chairman White of White Realty, and Lucius's father, Chairman Lucius Sr. Chairman Lucius. Lucius had intentionally brought me here. He had pushed me into a confrontation that was not just emotional, but a war between two powerful families. I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw in his always calm eyes a complex emotion, a warning, an unspoken apology. The real storm had officially begun. The moment the four of us stood face to face, the entire ballroom seemed to fall silent. Every sound, every light dimmed, leaving only a palpable tension that enveloped the space. My hand, in Lucius's, suddenly turned cold. I could feel his reassuring squeeze, but it wasn't enough to stop my heart from pounding wildly with fear. Chairman Lucius, Lucius's father, was the first to speak. He had a stern, experienced face and sharp eyes identical to his son's. He glanced at me, a fleeting look that made me feel utterly stripped bare. "Lucius, what is this? Who is this girl?" His voice was deep and authoritative. Before Lucius could reply, Lena cut in, her voice laden with indignation, as if she had endured much. "Uncle Lucius, you must take my side. Lucius, he rejected me because of this girl, humiliating me in front of so many people." As she spoke, she looked towards her father, Chairman White, who stood beside her with a dark expression. Chairman White cleared his throat, his gaze unfriendly as he looked directly at me. "Mr. Lucius, I think we need an explanation. Lucius Corporation and White Realty are about to become strategic partners, and my daughter will soon be the Lucius family's daughter-in-law. Young Lucius here is publicly associating with an unknown employee. I'm afraid this will affect the reputation of both corporations." Their words, every single one, were like knives stabbing into me. Unknown employee? I clenched my fist, my nails digging into my skin. A feeling of humiliation and anger surged to an extreme. I had intended to follow Lucius's advice, hold my head high and remain silent, but this insult had crossed my limit. Just as I was about to retort, Lucius spoke first. His voice was ice cold, yet perfectly clear, echoing throughout the space. "Firstly, Lucius Corporation and White Realty are still in the negotiation phase, not yet partners. Secondly," he paused, his eyes as sharp as knives sweeping over Lena, making her instinctively recoil. "Who told you I would marry her?" That one sentence stunned everyone. Lena's face went pale, Chairman White was fuming and trembling with rage, and even Chairman Lucius frowned, looking at his son. "Lucius, what nonsense are you saying?" Chairman Lucius snapped softly. "I'm not talking nonsense," Lucius retorted, unyielding. "My marriage, my career, I will decide for myself. I am not a commodity to be exchanged in business deals." With that, he suddenly turned to me. He released my hand but then put his arm around my shoulder, pulling me close to him in a possessive and protective stance. "And her?" He looked directly into his father's eyes, then at Chairman White. His voice was incisive. "She is not an unknown employee. She is Sophie Tran, the woman I am pursuing, and the only one I want to be with." My whole world exploded. I looked up at him, my eyes filled with skepticism, astonishment, and a wild flicker of hope that had just been ignited. What was he saying? Wasn't he pursuing Lena? Wasn't I just a tutor, a pawn in his plan? "Lucius," Lena shrieked, no longer able to maintain her composure. "You're crazy. You're giving up everything for a poor, lowly girl. What does she have that I don't?" "She doesn't need to be better than anyone," Lucius cut her off coldly, "because the person I wanted from the very beginning was her." From the very beginning. Those 4 words were like an electric current running down my spine. All the scattered pieces suddenly coalesced into a complete picture. The morning hazelnut lattes, the practice sessions where I was always the subject, the times he deliberately sought my attention, pulling me into awkward situations. All of it wasn't random lessons, it was all part of a meticulously calculated plan. A plan whose ultimate goal was me. A love tutor for my boss. Little did I know his target was me. My head spun, my heart both aching from the deception and so overwhelmed with sweetness that I could barely breathe. He had staged an entire grand play just to approach me, to teach a perpetually self-conscious, timid Sophie how to hold her head high, how to face storms. He didn't just want to pursue me, he wanted me to become a better version of myself, strong enough to stand beside him. What a dramatic display of affection, Chairman White scoffed. Chairman Lucius, it seems your Lucius family has no sincerity for cooperation. I will definitely remember what happened today. Let's go. He pulled Lena, who was now openly sobbing, and they walked away. Chairman Lucius remained, his face etched with extreme fury. He pointed at Lucius's face. You, get home right now. With that, he too angrily left, leaving us standing alone in the ballroom amidst hundreds of curious stares and whispers. Lucius still held my shoulder tightly. He leaned down, looking directly into my tear-filled eyes. The coldness on his face had vanished, replaced by a gentleness and a hint of apology. I'm sorry, he said, his voice hoarse. Sorry for dragging you into all this. I looked at him, and the tears I had been holding back finally streamed down my cheeks. I wanted to hit him, and I wanted to hug him at the same time. Why? I sobbed. Why didn't you just tell me directly? Why concoct such a complicated play? Because I knew if I told you directly, you would run away, he said, gently wiping my tears. You wouldn't believe someone like me could like an ordinary girl like you. You would be self-conscious, scared, and push me away. I could only use this method to help you gradually adapt, to give you the courage to face everything, to make you believe you are completely worthy. He paused, his deep eyes holding an ocean of emotion. Sophie, the final lesson. Once you are sure of your feelings, bravely speak them. I love you. Will you officially be my girlfriend? Not in a contract, but in real life. This confession, amidst the chaos, was the most sincere I had ever heard. The cards were laid bare, and the unexpected winner was me. In the face of Lucius's abrupt and sincere confession, surrounded by hundreds of curious eyes, I did something I never expected myself to do. I took a step back, looked him straight in the eye, and burst into tears. But these weren't tears of humiliation or fear, they were tears of overwhelming relief, a release after so much suppression. You're a swindler, I sobbed, lightly punching his chest. An arrogant, autocratic swindler who thinks he's always right. Lucius didn't flinch. He stood perfectly still, taking my blows, his gaze still tender. Yes, I am a swindler, so will this swindler be forgiven by you? I took a deep breath, trying to suppress my sobs. I looked into his eyes, which were filled with anticipation and a touch of anxiety. My heart, though still angry at being played like a pawn, couldn't find the words to refuse him. I hesitated, then laughed through my tears. I agree, but this love tutor contract needs revision. Party B demands higher compensation. The smile on Lucius's lips finally bloomed, a truly radiant and warm smile like the sunshine, melting away all his usual coldness. He said nothing more, just pulled me into his arms and placed a deep kiss on my lips. In the noisy ballroom, amidst the hushed whispers, he used his actions to declare to the whole world that I was his. Everything else around us seemed to cease to exist, leaving only the sweet taste of the kiss and the synchronized rhythm of 2 beating hearts. That night, he didn't take me back to my small apartment. We went to his penthouse on the top floor of a downtown building. From there, the entire city sparkled at night like a galaxy. Standing before the colossal glass wall, Lucius held me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. I noticed you a long time ago, he began to recount, his deep, warm voice resonating beside my ear. It was from the quarterly report meeting half a year ago, when you were the only one who dared to stand up and point out a logical flaw in a veteran manager's plan. At that moment, you were trembling with fear, yet firm in defending your point of view. That image etched itself into my mind. I turned to look at him in astonishment. I had almost forgotten that incident. I wanted to approach you, he continued, but I saw your insecurity and the shell you built around yourself. You always bowed your head, always avoided attention. I knew if I appeared abruptly as a CEO, you would be scared and run away. So I came up with this crazy plan. I wanted you to be my love tutor, but in reality, I was teaching you. Teaching you how to hold your head high, teaching you how to face rumors, teaching you how to shine at a party, teaching you how to believe in yourself. Because Lucius Tan's woman cannot be someone always hiding in a shell. You must be strong enough to stand beside me, not as someone I protect, but as a partner. Every word of his was like a warm stream of water flowing into my heart, washing away all my bitterness and doubts. He didn't just love me, he used his own unique way to help me grow. His love was not possession, but cultivation. Our battle, of course, didn't end there. Chairman Lucius was truly furious. He froze Lucius's credit cards, repossessed his car, and even pressured the board of directors. The contract with White Realty was canceled, causing a significant loss for the corporation. Lucius faced pressure from all sides, but this time I was no longer the weak Sophie of before. I stood by him. When he had to move from his penthouse to live with me in my small apartment, I cooked him warm meals. When he had to take the bus to work, I squeezed through the crowded streets with him. I used all my abilities, staying up all night with him to analyze new projects and seek out other potential partners. During a tense shareholder meeting, when Lucius was being questioned, I was the one who stood up and presented a detailed analysis of a promising niche market that everyone else had overlooked. The confidence, logic, and vision in my presentation astonished everyone, even Chairman Lucius, who was sitting in the front row. Gradually, people began to look at me differently. They no longer saw me as a lucky lowly employee, but as a truly capable woman, a worthy partner for Lucius. Ultimately, with our combined efforts, we signed a contract even larger than the one with White Realty, leading the corporation out of crisis spectacularly. That day, Chairman Lucius personally called me to his office. He didn't say much, only placed a brocade box on the table. Inside was an antique jade bracelet, a Lucius family heirloom. It was the most precious recognition I had received. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office as head of strategic development, a position I had earned with my own abilities. Lucius walked in, holding a familiar hazelnut latte. He placed the coffee on my desk along with a carefully bound document. I curiously opened it. The first line caught my eye: lifetime marriage contract. Party A, Lucius Tan. Party B, Sophie Tran. Content: Party A vows to spend the rest of his life loving, caring for, and bringing happiness to Party B. The contract is effective permanently. I looked up, my eyes blurred with emotion. Lucius knelt on one knee in front of me, a sparkling diamond ring in his hand. Tutor Sophie, he smiled, the gentlest smile in the world. How do you like this plan? Any revisions needed? I burst out laughing, happy tears rolling down my cheeks. The plan is very good, but what about the compensation? Compensation, he said, his voice filled with love. My entire life and the title of Mrs. Lucius. Do you agree? I didn't answer, just nodded and held out my hand for him to slip the ring on. The love tutor drama had finally ended, opening a new chapter for our lives, a chapter called happiness. And I knew that with this man by my side, no matter how many storms lay ahead, I would have enough confidence and courage to face them. Because the most important lesson he taught me was a lesson about love and believing in myself.